Hey everyone, welcome back to Chess on Ice. I'm recording something a little bit different today. You might even get to see my very furry cat Zoe sitting comfortably in the background on my couch. But I wanted to talk about what's currently going on in USA curling, particularly regarding its current CEO, Jeff Plush, his history with the National Women's Soccer League, various reports that have come out, and how USA curling is handling this situation. For a lot of us who spend a lot of time on social media in sort of curling discussions, we've already heard all of this. There are a lot of discussions going on right now, particularly about how individual curlers and clubs are responding to what's happening. But I know that not everyone is following what's happening on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. So I kind of wanted to go over all the facts of what's happened, a little bit of a timeline, and then maybe a little bit more editorializing towards the end. But the real purpose here is to get everyone kind of caught up, especially if you're not part of this, honestly, somewhat insular group of curlers that talks about this stuff online. So the current story starts with a report that came out on October 3rd, in which Sally Yates, a former deputy U.S. Attorney General, and I think for a short time was the acting Attorney General, made an independent investigation into abuse and misconduct allegations in the National Women's Soccer League. And as a result of her investigation, she found a long list of failures, as this article we're looking at reads, by executives both in the NWSL and in the United States Soccer Federation. The report reads in this article, "Our investigation has revealed a league in which abuse and misconduct, verbal and emotional abuse and sexual misconduct, had become systemic, spanning multiple teams, coaches, and victims. Abuse in the NWSL is rooted in a deeper culture in women's soccer, beginning in youth leagues that normalizes verbally abusive coaching and blurs boundaries between coaches and players." Now, as you read further, you'll find more specifics about this, including one story that is particularly important, involving, as we scroll down here, former Portland Thorns manager Paul Riley. Now, this story, for those who follow sports, whether you follow women's soccer in particular, or maybe you're just a general sports fan, you may have heard a little bit about it last year. The Athletic put out a report detailing allegations of sexual harassment and coercion made against Riley back in 2015. Two former Thorns players, Mana Shim and Sinead Fairley, I apologize if I mispronounce anything, alleged that Riley invited both players back to his apartment and asked them to kiss each other in exchange for getting the team out of a conditioning drill the next day, as well as drinking with players and sending lewd photos to Shim. The Thorns did fire Riley, as you'd hope, but they didn't follow up on the additional allegations. And furthermore, Riley was later hired back in the league. And as we scroll down further, you see that the report talks about Riley being allowed to continue coaching in the NWSL. And here's where Plush's name begins to show up. Former NWSL Commissioner Jeff Plush, in an email to then USSF President Sunil Gulati and others here, conveyed his understanding that Thorns president of soccer Gavin Wilkinson told the Western New York Flash that Riley was put in a bad position by the player, and that Wilkinson would hire Riley in a heartbeat. ESPN also reports that Plush, Gulati, and others had all received Shim's detailed complaint, and Plush and Levine received a 2015 report from the Thorns. None of them, including Plush, gave the Flash that additional information or did anything really to prevent him from being rehired. Interestingly, the report also mentions that at least three organizations, three of the teams in the NWSL, didn't fully cooperate with the investigation. And that seems to be the case with Plush as well. And I'll move on to another article to talk more about that. And actually, this USA Today article is another article detailing some of the systemic abuse of players in the NWSL. And on October 10th, we have this article from USA Today's Nancy R. Moore. Former NWSL commissioner didn't respond to Sally Yates after saying he welcomed the investigation. And this is when things really started heating up in the curling community. Already there was a concern, we'll say, from curlers about the outcome of that investigation and the fact that Plush was going to, I should say, whether Plush was going to stay on as the USA Curling CEO. And what came out on the 10th were details of a call from last October that Jeff Plush had with other staff at USA Curling. Plush was already CEO at the time. He's been the CEO of USA Curling since February 2020. USA Today Sports says it got details of the call from people with knowledge of it. Presumably someone who was on the call decided to give this information to the press. And interestingly, it says they requested anonymity for fear of retaliation. Presumably they have at least some reason to have that fear, which is a very, very concerning thing, to say the least, especially given the nature of what's going on with this investigation. So in that call, apparently, Plush told other USA Curling staff that he was enthusiastic about a full investigation. And as it goes on, you see, he says, "I have absolutely no equivocation whatsoever that I did the right thing. I know that I did the legal thing. I did the only things I could do by the law. I'm happy to let that come out." And Plush apparently said on that phone call that he also told the USA Curling Board of Directors the same thing. However, and this is what concerned a lot of people right off the bat in the curling community, in Yates's report, she said right away that Plush never responded to the outreach of her or her team investigating these incidents in the NWSL. So you have Plush saying a year ago that he'd be very comfortable cooperating and looking forward to everything coming out, or at least being happy to allow things to come out. He clarifies that at different points. And then not cooperating with this very large, very well-respected independent investigation done on U.S. Soccer's behalf. And in fact, at the end of that call, at least according to the information in this article, Plush says some things that really don't seem to jive with what we now know about his apparent lack of cooperation, or at least response, with the Yates investigation. He says, "This will be an ongoing, fairly intensive investigation at the league level, at the U.S. soccer level, at the FIFA level." FIFA, for those who maybe aren't sports people, being the International Soccer Federation. "So I'll have to be responsive to that when the time comes, and I welcome it." Welcome's probably the wrong word. I want it to happen. It won't be any fun. But I'm very confident what we did was correct. In all seriousness, if you've got questions, ask me. I'm an open book. Sometimes maybe too open, but I'll tell you anything you want to know. And so on October 4th, just a day after that report came out, USA Curling released its first statement on the matter. And the response surprised a lot of curlers, to say the least. This is an article from ESPN where it says, USA Curling says CEO Jeff Plush acted in accordance with prioritizing the safety of athletes during his tenure as leader of the National Women's Soccer League, where an investigation uncovered years of systemic emotional abuse and sexual misconduct. So that wasn't going to be the USA Curling's last word, but as their first word, it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, to say the least. We had just seen all these allegations against against coaches and staff and the culture of the NWSL in general, and saw that Plush, at the very least, didn't do as much as he could have. If at nothing else, there was the appearance that he hadn't done as much as he could have, and it seemed as though he wasn't cooperating with the most pertinent investigation into the incidents that occurred under his watch. So this really started to kick up a firestorm with people wondering why USA Curling was willing to go to bat for Jeff Plush, who doesn't come from a curling background, hasn't been in the job that long, hasn't had anything remarkable happen during his tenure, and honestly is the subject of allegations that really fly in the face of this idea of protecting player safety. And in the wake of those statements, various groups, including individuals, clubs, and the USA Curling DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force, started publishing open letters of their own to the USA Curling Board. And most of them wanted the same things, or some variety of the same things. But I think of these, perhaps the DEI Task Force statement is the most comprehensive in regards to this particular issue. It's worth noting there is another issue going on at the same time in USA Curling regarding the status of the GNCC, the Grand National Curling Club, one of the regional associations, the one that I'm a part of, that covers essentially the entire east coast of the United States, where, based on the results of a members' assembly held next week, the organization, at least, may no longer be a part of USA Curling. It gets a little bit more complicated than that when you talk about individual curlers and clubs, but that's a backdrop that there was already some animosity here and a lot of tension within USA Curling even before this came out. But sticking to the Jeff Plush and NWSL aspects of this, the USA Curling DEI Task Force put out a statement earlier this week on Wednesday, and it asked for four things in particular. First, it wanted USA Curling, the board of USA Curling, to engage with the USOPC on a couple issues. One, immediately removing Jeff Plush as the CEO of USA Curling. And this, again, points out the fact that the Yates report noted that Plush was among the people who did not respond to outreach or requests to participate in the investigation, despite the fact that Plush said that he was open to doing so. And the fact that he was failing to assist in the investigation of alleged abuse shows that Plush cannot be trusted to lead an organization. It makes an excellent point here as well that currently USA Curling safe sport claims are sent to the CEO, Plush, who also served as the commissioner of the NWSL during the reported sexual abuse and other misconduct, which, at the very least, may make people less likely to come forward, less likely to believe that USA Curling will take their stories seriously, less likely to believe that they'll be protected from retaliation, less likely to believe that they are safe in the sport. Number two is an extension number one. It's really number one or number two, saying that if Plush is not removed as CEO, the DEI task force, and I should say this letter includes both the current DEI task force and some former members, calls for the board of directors to resign. And it points out that the members of the board of directors, according to the USA Curling bylaws themselves, should have demonstrated exceptional ability and judgment and so on, and basically stating that if the board of directors is supporting Plush, they are not showing that judgment. In addition, though, this letter also hits at another important point, which is that some of the systemic organizational failures, as far as DI Task Force sees it, of USA Curling need also be investigated. In particular, they ask for USA Curling to revisit safe sport complaints that have been made while Jeff Plush has been the CEO. There have been stories, one in particular on Reddit that you can probably still find, although some of the details were deleted, basically saying that in one pretty egregious case, according to a curler, they basically got nowhere. Everything that they reported got brushed under the rug, both at their club level and at the USA Curling organizational level, and by Safe Sport. And raising concerns that perhaps Safe Sport is just being used as a clearinghouse, at least in some cases, to say, yep, it's out of our hands, we handed it off to Safe Sport, sorry, we can't help you anymore from USA Curling. Whether or not that's true, that is a concern that at least this person and others appear to have. The DEI task force says that they're concerned about the process in which safe sport complaints are handled. They want a full investigation to be carried out to determine the appropriateness of the response to all safe sport claims received by Jeff Plush while he's been the CEO of USA Curling. So finally, they're also asking the board of directors to release the results of a 2021 investigation of Jeff Plush commissioned by USA Curling last year. That's an important part of the timeline too. USA Curling did do their own investigation using, as they say, both internal and external review procedures. And they came to the conclusion, they say, that Jeff Plush acted in accordance with prioritizing the safety of athletes and that he was appropriate for him to stay on as the USA Curling CEO. But the board of directors has never released anything in relation to this investigation, which means one of two things is true. Either they have information that contradicts what came out of the Yates investigation, or they don't, and they don't want people to know that, but they still want to protect Plush. Or I suppose they have information that they feel mitigates or excuses his behavior that they can't release for some reason. So that's a point of really a lack of clarity and a lack of transparency for a lot of people following this in the curling community. And the DEI task force statement ends with, only once action items 1 through 4 have been addressed can we, USA Curlers, begin to move forward in a positive manner to reimagine and redefine USA Curling in a way that upholds the values and ethics outlined in the DE&I task force charter while working towards the mission of bringing the sport of curling to the United States by prioritizing accessibility and programmatic development from grassroots to podium. Okay. And you'll see the names that are signed there. I doubt anyone minds because I think there are many, many more of us that have also signed on to this letter. And I can even post a link in the description of this video with a link to the where you can sign on and support if you wish to. I'm actually going to have a lot of links throughout this video that I'll have to include in the description to make this complete and allow you to look into all this stuff for yourself if you want to. There were other letters. Curling Club of Virginia had a prominent one that called for a lot of actions, including removing Jeff Plush, releasing the investigation, a statement from USA Curling explaining why they feel that Jeff Plush prioritized the safety of athletes despite the report from former Attorney General Sally Yates. And then also calling on if the failure of those things that we should remove the board entirely, reviewing actions. And interestingly, they asked, we do have a members assembly coming up on October 21st, next Friday, for the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee to provide direct oversight of the members assembly because of all the issues going on. And so on, and I can link to this one as well. So, as it turned out, USA Curling was ready with a statement. This statement was dated. I've seen it dated differently, either Wednesday or Thursday, but of course it didn't happen to come out until early Friday morning. So a lot of curlers woke up to this statement from the USA Curling Board of Directors, which I will read. USA Curling is committed to ensuring a culture of respect and dignity with the well-being of people at the forefront of our actions, policies, and leadership's attention. Following the recent release of the Yates Report, an investigation commissioned by U.S. Soccer into the allegations of abusive behavior and sexual misconduct in the National Women's Soccer League, NWSL, the USA Curling Board of Directors called a special session and immediately commissioned an investigation of the information contained in the Yates Report regarding USA Curling CEO Jeff Plush's actions during his time as NWSL Commissioner. After reviewing the results of this investigation, the USA Curling Board of Directors is confident in Jeff's ability to continue as an effective leader of the organization. The findings in this investigation, Jeff's candor during interviews with the board, and his actions during his time as USA Curling CEO reassured the board about his strong commitment to upholding the very highest standards for athlete well-being. Additionally, the board is encouraged by Jeff's willingness to fully cooperate in the ongoing NWSL and its Players Association investigation. A quick note here, because there has been some confusion, where people are saying that USA Curling is outright lying about his willingness to fully cooperate. It is talking about a different investigation. There was the U.S. Soccer investigation led by Sally Yates, but there is a separate investigation ongoing that is a shared investigation by the National Women's Soccer League and the Players Association for that league. I don't have any inside information on whether Plush is cooperating or to what extent, but it's certainly possible that for whatever reason he preferred to cooperate with that group instead of the U.S. Soccer investigation. So I can't say that, that's a lie. It's just seems unusual that they'd be encouraged by that, but not discouraged by the fact that he didn't cooperate with this other year-long investigation. A thoughtful review of this matter has taken some time, and the board appreciates the patience for stakeholders, as we have ensured a comprehensive review of this matter. Collectively, we continue to support and affirm the organization's zero tolerance for conduct which negatively impacts a person's well-being. And then there is a statement that rubbed some people, again, the wrong way, and had some people questioning USA Curling's motives. I don't know if that's quite fair or not, but let's read it. It says, the board has been deeply involved in the process of in ensuring Jeff can continue to lead the organization, said USA Curling Board of Directors Chair Lynn LaRocca. We are confident in our due diligence and the thoroughness that went into reviewing the matter. So the part that some people have pointed to that they see as indicating that the result of this investigation or this review was always going to be that Jeff Plush could remain CEO is that first part, that the board was involved in the process of ensuring Jeff could continue to lead the organization, not investigating whether he could continue to lead the organization. Now, that could just be badly phrased, but I can understand why people see that and have questions. And so that brings us to the firestorm that is hitting the internet today. There are a lot of other angles to this, too, that are perplexing at times. Here's a good one. The United States Women's Curling Association, USWCA, is a organization that basically brings together women from all the clubs in the United States, or at least most, who have memberships in the USWCA. It works to advocate and promote events for women and opportunity for women curlers. In addition, also working somewhat with youth curlers. With new curlers, they sponsor 5 and under events and the like as well. In fact, when the 5 and under national championship started a few years ago, it was initially a USWCA sponsored event rather than an USCA event. So they do a lot of things, but their core principles are in promoting and supporting women's curling. We can read right on the mission of the USWCA is to develop, nurture, and promote the sport of curling among today's women and all youth. Their vision for the USWCA is committed to traditions of service to women and curling while embracing organizational changes that best serve its members, its volunteers, and its reputation in the curling community. And they have an inclusion position statement too, which covers a lot of the same ground. And so I think for a lot of female curlers and women who are curling in the United States right now, it seemed only natural that they would be able to discuss this, say, on the USWCA's Facebook page. And that really didn't happen. When some women started posting about this event, or I should say, when some women started posting about the Jeff Plush situation and the NWSL report from Sally Yates, they saw posts deleted. They saw messages from USWCA leadership saying that they weren't going to take a stance until The USCA made a statement themselves, and pointing out that the U.S. Women's Curling Association, being a separate entity from the USCA, it is not a USCA organization, didn't actually have the power to do anything about Jeff Plush one way or the other. And while that may be true, it left a lot of people very perplexed as to why the USWCA was stifling discussion about it instead of advocating on behalf of women in curling here in the United States. And when the USCA did finally release their statement that came out this morning on Friday morning, the 14th, we got this from the USWCA's Facebook page, where an admin paused this group on October 14, 2022. So there is definitely no discussion going on there now about this topic, at least for the time being. And Matt Sussman, a curler and a writer who often writes about curling, put up this meme, which I thought was kind of on the mark, at least in some sense. And then USA Today now and many other outlets are now covering the fact that USA Curling is standing by its CEO, despite allegations he played a role in the NWSL's systemic culture of abuse and the league's indifference to complaints from players. So USA Curling is very much in the news, but not really for the best reasons, to say the least. Yeah, so that is where we stand today. And with the Members' Assembly coming up next week, can only imagine this might come up there. There are a lot of statements from clubs, individuals, members, just outraged by this. Even if you want to take a more moderate stance and not immediately call for Plush's dismissal, at the very least, it would be reasonable for the USCA to explain its decision, to explain why it's standing behind Plush, and to review things like how safe sport complaints have been handled under him, to see if there are similar issues happening in USA Curling now. And at least according to some anecdotal reports, it sure seems like there are. Yeah, I don't know what to say beyond that. This is a crisis situation for USA Curling. How they handle this could have a dramatic impact on the future of USA Curling, because this doesn't seem like the kind of issue that people are just going to forget about and let be brushed under the rug. And there's going to be tremendous pressure on the board of directors at the Members' Assembly and perhaps beyond to remove Plush from his post. And I would say that even in the most generous reading of all this, let's say, because I think you can come up with a narrative that maybe gives Plush the benefit of the doubt. There may have been, he and others in the NWSL keep bringing up legal issues and stuff without, at least to my knowledge, being very specific on what those are, and that they acted within accordance with the law and they did what they were allowed to do. And if that's all true, and there really was nothing else that could be done, and USA Curling knows that, not sure why they wouldn't just say that we understand the frustration of our members, but we believe that he did everything he possibly could, even if that's not what you would have liked to have seen, which I haven't said. Even in that case, at this point, he's lost the rank and file support of members or the trust of members, and USA Curling has to work for its members. That's the only reason it truly exists, is to work for its members. And if membership doesn't want this person as their CEO, as their leader, it boggles the mind as to why USA Curling's board of directors would want to keep him in that job. And it's hard to say what percentage of curlers care about this issue, how many curlers really know about this issue. But of the ones who do, I have seen nobody defending Jeff Plush. There may have been one or two comments I've seen in the last couple weeks saying, well, I'd like to wait to hear more. And everyone else has basically been saying this guy needs to be out of a job. So, yeah, that's pretty much where we stand at this point. Feel free to discuss this in the comments below. I'm going to leave a lot of links so you can do more research on this and learn more if you want to. If you comment, the only thing I ask is that in terms of any personal back and forth in the comments, be respectful of people. I think everyone's going to come into this just posting what their own beliefs are, and everyone's coming from a different position in this. So, yeah, just let's be nice to each other down there in the comments, and I'll be back again with a new video soon, hopefully on a more fun topic. We'll get back to talking curling strategy. Maybe I'll have some interviews soon, other stuff. For now, this has been Chess on Ice, and hope you have a good weekend.